Hello and welcome back to another week of Calling in Sick. I'm your host, Alex Wilderson. This week, we're finally doing the episode that I have been dying to do. And although I probably should do an episode where I just give you my own experience with this topic, I wanted to first bring in an expert so we could lay the groundwork and kind of demystify the topic. Now, I'm beating around the bush, but we're talking all things psychedelic therapy and how that can be helpful for mental health and chronic pain. As you guys know, I was diagnosed with something called CRPS, or complex regional pain syndrome, back in 2020. I developed it after some nerve damage from my primary condition, polyarteritis nodosa, degenerative form of vasculitis. And it is an excruciating experience. You feel like your body is on fire, and very, very few things can move the needle to give you any form of comfort. And with my experience with CRPS, I exhausted nerve medication, narcotic medication, lifestyle changes, acupuncture, diets, Lord knows everything and anything under the sun. Now, I hit the point of desperation, and my pain management doctor suggested that we do the Hail Mary and look into ketamine therapy. It seems odd saying that now because 2020 was not that long ago, but in just 5 years, we have grown leaps and bounds in our scientific understanding of how ketamine can be helpful for addressing really complex, hard-to-treat chronic pain and mental health. And honestly, I'm so thankful that my provider put this on the table for us, because the timing that I had this therapy and having this tool in my toolbox now has been life-changing and put my trajectory of my chronic illness experience in a whole different direction than what I think would have happened without it. Now, I know that sounds kind of dramatic and like maybe I'm giving too much credit to ketamine therapy and who I am today and how I manage my pain and mental health, but I want to invite you guys in and really share what 2020 was like for me. The pandemic had just started and we were in lockdown. I was starting where I was going to be fully immunocompromised, meaning I couldn't see really anybody besides Cooper. And at the start of the pandemic, when we didn't really know how you could catch it, how it was passed to person, I lived in debilitating fear where I was even scared of the circulating air in our condo. It was a crippling level of anxiety. Then layer on me living with this chronic illness that was making me get sicker and sicker, developing this terrifying and terrible type of chronic pain, going through medications and procedures and having no relief. I spiraled into a depression where I thought, this is my life now. This is not it. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to have this experience. I don't want to live my life like this. And I think had I not had some kind of intervention at that time point, I would have slipped even further. Now, sneak peek. In this episode, Oli Mittermaier, who's my guest, runs an amazing psychedelic therapy center in California. And their protocol requires a lot of pre-work, integration work, and it's a journey that you do alongside practitioners. That's kind of the gold standard. My experience with ketamine was not like that, but I still had really dramatic and profound benefits from it. My experience was going into my pain management office in a room that had some windows in it, in a pre-surgical gurney bed with an IV pole, a chair that Cooper sat in next to me, and that was it. It was not, I would not describe the setting as cozy, welcoming, the place that you feel safe to kind of open up your brain and be raw and vulnerable and just unfold with your trauma. I would describe it more as sterile. However, my pain management doctor was a godsend. He was amazing. And I think because he was there and because St. Coop was there, I felt safe. So my setting, even though it wasn't cushy and lovely, the people with me made the setting okay. Now, when you do IV ketamine therapy, the first thing that most people describe or notice is that you get like this loud whirring sound in your ear, like almost like you're going through a tunnel or a train. And that's kind of the first indicator that you are about to dissociate a bit from reality. And what I noticed during these sessions was that I was able to almost step away from my pain. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was almost as if I noticed who I am with pain and who I was before I got PAN and got really sick. Granted, I still lived with pain, reminder, because I've been autoimmune since I was 6. But it was this separation of intense emotions and intense pain from who I am as a human being. And after time and additional sessions, I started to notice that my brain was changing how it viewed pain when I was experiencing pain. Now, thankfully, I did do some reading before I started my ketamine therapy, and so I knew that you were supposed to do visualizations and kind of imagine yourself as who you wanted to be. For me, that was me being able to manage my pain better. Not necessarily not have it, because I knew that wasn't necessarily a reality, perhaps, but I wasn't controlled by the pain. So I started conjuring up this visualization. And if you've been a podcast subscriber for a while, you've probably heard me describe this before. But I call it my pain closet and my serenity. So what I did and what I do is I close my eyes and I envision myself taking all of that pain that is separated from myself during the ketamine therapy, pushing it into a jar, screwing the lid on, and putting it in a closet and closing the door. And then I envision myself on a beach with the waves crashing and my toes in the sand, and the sand's warm and the sun's warm. There's a nice breeze and it is tranquil. And I would spend my entire session, be that an hour or 4 hours, in this kind of space. When the treatments were done, I always left feeling lighter. Like I wasn't so weighed down by all of the heaviness that comes with depression and anxiety and chronic pain. And I think a big note here is that ketamine and psychedelic therapy, they're not a silver bullet. They're not a magical pill that fixes you. Instead, I think it's better to think of these things as tools that help promote neurogenesis in our brains, because our brains have neuroplasticity, that allow you to separate yourself from feeling like there's talons being so tightly dug into you, controlling you from the anxiety or the depression or the pain. And over enough time, however many treatment cycles you might need, you start to have those talons lessen and lessen and lessen. And then all of a sudden, you're living your life and you notice that you're experiencing these heavier things, but you're able to go about your day-to-day without it being controlled by them. Now, if you're sitting here and you're thinking, Alex, this episode is not going to be for me. Psychedelics are drugs are bad. I learned that in elementary school. We're against drugs. I hear you. I still remember the first time I heard of someone taking ketamine. I was in my Spanish class, and there was a rumor going around the school about this girl who was taking ketamine, and everyone kept referring to her as the horse tranquilizer girl. Now I know she was incredibly depressed, on the brink of wanting to end it all, and that medication, and she had finally turned to ketamine to try to help herself, and she had relief with it. It was a huge success. It makes me really disappointed and honestly sad that that's the public's perception of ketamine, or at least what it was during that time period, because she was just trying to get relief, to feel better, and to continue having the will to continue onward. And I will say, I had that perception of it's a party drug, it's taboo, it's bad, literally up until I was at my own breaking point looking for a Hail Mary. And so if I could say anything to old Alex, or to someone listening that holds those same sentiments, get out of your own way. Society likes to have these preconceived notions about things. In the 90s, it was that therapy was for people that were terrible, that were past the point of needing help. It was for bad kids. 30 years later, everyone I know goes to therapy or is a supporter of therapy. If we just accept these paradigms that society gives us and don't question them or do the actual research to figure out what something is or why it helps people, all we're doing is denying ourselves a tool that could be a really strong, powerful, amazing tool in our own toolkit. So I guess what I would love to come out of this episode is that if you have preconceived notions, let this episode challenge them. If you have curiosity but are feeling like it's taboo to seek ketamine therapy for help, let yourself explore it. Listen, learn, do your own research. You can even call Oli's clinic to learn more. And if you are on the decision point of is it for me or is it not, this episode is going to help you understand that answer and if this is the right time for you. And just like each of us aren't a great fit for every single medication out there, you might not be a great fit for this one. But learning about it, understanding it, at least you know if it could be or it could not be for you. Before we dive into this week's episode, quick housekeeping. Please follow, like, subscribe, rate the show, leave comments. It's really helping. Your engagement is helping push this podcast out to where it needs to go. And my hope is that each episode hits the ears of somebody that needed to hear certain words that are in those episodes, or find a guest or another patient that looks or sounds like them in their experience and feels motivated to make different changes or tweaks to their own lives or protocols to make themselves feel a little bit better. And because this episode is all about relief, my Alex's picks this week are the 2 easy things at home that are literally for anyone and everyone. So my first pick is a relief pack. This is not your grandma's ice pack. These are made by hand. These slightly weighted, reusable ice packs are stuffed with organic triple wash pinto beans that when you put them in your freezer and they cool down, they give you the most refreshing, cool relief imaginable. These products are non-melting, non-sweating, and they're made locally. You can find the link in the description below. My second pick is not a common casual scent. It is a strong lidocaine menthol scent. It is what I talk about left and right on social media because it gives you instant relief. If you've been following along, you probably know what I'm about to say. CBD Living Roll-On. I looked right here to see if there's one next to me because usually I have one in reachable distance. The CBD Living Roll-On comes in, I think, 5 different dosage options. I personally like the 750 or the 1,500 milligram level. And what sets their topical apart from all other CBD is that they have scientifically concocted their product to deliver nano-size CBD at a nano size, which means it's more bioavailable and your body can absorb more of it, giving you a higher therapeutic relief. When I tell you it gives you instant pain relief, I'm not lying. This is the number 1 product that I give to any of my friends and family that are just getting older and have aches and pains, are new to the chronic illness game, or if they've been on the hunt for topicals that actually work. This is the one. This is the Desert Island Pain Relief. Links in the description below. And now let's buckle up because we're going to talk all things psychedelics and how it can help you feel better living with your chronic illness or mental health burdens. Hello and welcome back to another week of Calling in Sick, everybody. I have the amazing Oli with me and we are going to get into everything psychedelic this week. Hey, Oli.
Alex, great to be here.
So excited to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experiences, your learnings, your findings with us and this community. I think it's going to be so impactful for everybody to walk away learning something new, changing preconceived notions on what psychedelic therapy is and how it can be useful and how that has kind of evolved over the last few decades. So thank you so much for being here and being a part of this.
Yeah, can't wait. All right, let's
dive on. To dive on in, I would love to just start with who you are, what your background is, and then we can get into how your history led you to explore and focus and kind of dedicate your life to psychedelic therapy.
Yeah, so this is a very sort of wonderful accident that I ended up doing what I'm doing now. So I'm one of the co-founders of CIT Clinics. We are based in Northern California. We've been providing psychedelic medicine now for close to 10 years. So we've been at this for a while. Yeah. And my background is I'm not a clinician, I'm not a therapist, I'm a startup guy. And so since my mid 20s, I'm 55, so that's quite a while ago at this point. I've been working in a variety of different ventures, and this is hands down the most compelling. This is my life's work right here. And a lot of it comes from personal experience with mental health and running into my own struggles and realizing how sort of woefully unequipped I was culturally. I'm German. I grew up in Europe. Just the idea of therapy, emotions, just not high on the list of it's not how we operated. And so
my dad was born in Germany, and that resonates.
Yeah, and it's pretty common. And so, as we'll probably talk about a lot here, a lot of the things that I really struggled with are also the things that helped me, I think, really steer this thing that we do now in a direction that it really hopefully just addresses needs that people have that they don't even know they have. Because that was my journey. That was my story. Is just stumbling through it, feeling awful for a good chunk of my life and just being so clueless about what was actually happening. And guess what? There's lots of people out there that are having those same experiences. So we can, the cool thing is now we can address that head on and say, hey, I think we understand what's happening for you, right?
I think so too.
So that's sort of how I came into this, yeah.
I love it. And I think one of like the most common storylines with people that have turned to psychedelic therapy is there's this like breaking point where the current toolbox that you have and paradigms that you're seeing the world no longer really support or fit the healing that needs to happen for you personally. Does that resonate with you? Did you have one of those like, oh shit, I've got to do something else, like I'm at my breaking point now moments?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And for me, I mean, just to be really transparent around it, it was like, it was depression that was so bad that I was pretty convinced that everyone in my life would be better off if I just kind of moved on,
Yep.
And
yep.
Of course, that's such a distortion of the pain,
reality.
The confusion, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it was very much a just not having the tools, not knowing, really understanding what was going on. And then I had taken psychedelics, but always in a recreational form, taking MDMA or mushrooms or doing something that was fun, but never in a therapeutic setting. And that was massively groundbreaking for me. So I had a few experiences. Yeah. That completely changed my view of, and probably most importantly, my understanding of intergenerational trauma. So getting how much of my stuff was not my stuff. I was like, it was the dregs in the bottom of my wine bottle, and realizing like, oh my gosh, this is not me, but I've been living and owning it as if it was my stuff. And so seeing that clearly, thanks to psychedelics, that's how that happened.
That resonates so deeply with me. I think a lot of people, and honestly, I almost think like COVID was this mass time where people turned inwards as well and started realizing that so many parts of who we are were built up by external factors. And COVID, with like the lack of socialization, with the lack of being able to communicate with people, you had to start realizing, is this me? Which parts of me do I like? Do I not like? What do I want to change? That's actually when I first kind of interfaced with ketamine as a therapeutic. And that was life-changing for me. I went after it for chronic pain, but the trickle-down effect that it had in my identity, my own experience with depression, anxiety, PTSD was so unexpected and refreshing. And it also completely changed how I viewed psychedelics, because similarly, I'd always seen it as, oh, it's a fun thing. Like, this is what people do when they're having a music festival or whatever. This is not for growth and evolving and healing. But it turns out it is.
Yeah. I mean, it says, we can. This is a whole probably a tangent that we ought not to go down, but I'll just dabble in it for a second. I mean, generally, I think our cultural relationship to substances that make you feel good. I think there's this old like puritanical hangover that we still have culturally, which is like, oh, if it makes you feel good, then it can't be good for you, right? Yeah. So we have this funky relationship with it, and there's this, why is ketamine sort of the psychedelic now that's actually legal in this moment? Has more to do with the fact that it's a pharmaceutical, and there's a long history, of it being used as an anesthetic. Yes. And so that's our sort of way into that doorway. But is it, the one and only substance that we could or should be using? Absolutely not. So
totally agree, and I'm excited to get into that whole array of conversation as well. And you're right, like there is this weird society kind of turning against psychedelics that is based in just like a long history. And I even remember myself having that kind of feeling, sitting in a college class, hearing a rumor that one of my classmates was taking ketamine, and the running joke was, oh, that's a horse tranquilizer. Like, why is this girl taking horse tranquilizers? Now, 10 years later, I'm like, oh, she had crippling depression, was probably suicidal, and was getting ketamine therapy to help get her through that. And how fucking terrible that people were spreading these nasty rumors about her. Yeah. And I wish that I could go back and change myself, shake myself, and be like, hey, it's actually really, really helpful and a powerful thing. But everyone has to get there on their own, and you can't really you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And it's almost, you have to get to your own breaking point or see someone you love hit that place and see their use and evolution with that medication to really appreciate that these things we're not supposed to be scared of them. They have such power and such amazing ability, completely different than what's on the market right now for mental health and for chronic pain, which the current modalities don't really reverse or change anything. They just mute everything.
Yeah.
So maybe we can get into that a little bit.
Yeah, right. I mean, so much of, I think, Western psychiatric medicine has been focused on addressing symptoms, right? So even the language that we use around it, like, oh, you have, patients come to us and they're like, yeah, I have major depressive disorder. I have generalized anxiety disorder. So all the language, revolves around this pathology that you have, this state that sort of defines you, right? And I think then the focus of the therapies is very much on symptom reduction. Well, depression sucks. You feel withdrawn or you feel, chronically scared. So let's give you medicines that address those issues. But there's this absence of, well, where's this coming from to begin with? Like why, so one of my favorite questions for patients is this anxiety or this depressed feeling. How old is that? Like, what's your first memory of that? And I'd say 90% of the time, people are like, it's always been there. So it's like, oh, interesting. So we know explicit memory comes online in the nervous system, let's say by age 4 or 5. That's usually most people's early memory. So if you're remembering this feeling as far back as then, you were probably swimming in waters that were contributing to that anxiety and that depression well before then, right? So your entire organism has been shaped and oriented around this. And so the question is, why? Like, what is depression? What is anxiety doing for you? And the answer is like, it's there because it was an adaptation that was keeping you safe in some way. So now we shift from, oh, this is a disorder, that you like, there's a pathology that you're dealing with too.
Something wrong with you.
Oh, right. Now we're actually noticing that was actually really useful to you as an infant or as a toddler very early on. So why? Like, what's it doing for you? Right? So that there's a protective mechanism there. If we can understand that, then we can start shifting the whole paradigm from this depression is bad. It's it's a sign that there's something wrong with me to, oh no, maybe it's a tool that was really useful at one point, but no longer so useful for me now that I'm 20, 30, 40, 50, however old you are, right? But it's not a pathology. It's not a sign that there's something wrong with you. It's a sign that something was going on for you, that you needed this as a coping mechanism, and maybe it's now outlived its useful purpose. So now what? What do we do here? Very different mentality.
So
right?
Totally different mentality. And it really resonates, I think, if I'm looking and paralleling it to like the chronic illness journey. When you're first symptomatic, everything feels like a warning bell, this, oh shit, flashing red light that you've got to pay attention to every symptom because it means something bad is happening. But now, someone who's lived this life for 25 years, I know that sometimes I'll have symptoms pop up and it's just a little sign that says, hey, slow down, instead of there's something wrong.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, these are, there's nothing that in human biology, our organism is so smart, right? And it has there's this innate intelligence that when these things come up, instead of pushing them away and saying, oh, that's the problem, or that's something that I ought to numb out or it needs fixing, I think the appropriate response is to say, I wonder why that's there. What's going on? And it doesn't mean that it's pleasant, but it's, a lot of stuff in life, like you stub your toe, it hurts. Why? Because that's your body saying, hey, when you kick things that are in the middle of the room, right? Yeah, when you do that, it hurts. Don't do that. That's dangerous, right? It's like, thank you. We don't view that as a pathology and say, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with my toe. It shouldn't hurt like that. We say, of course, you kick the chair in the middle of the room, it's going to hurt. So of course, you grow up in an environment where mom and dad are in chaos. There's unpredictability. You don't feel safe. Maybe there's violence around you. Like, how else is your organism supposed to respond to that other than anxiety is just, oh, let me figure out right now all the terrible stuff that might happen in the future. I'm going to figure it out now so that I'm safe when these terrible things happen. That's a pretty smart adaptation. Or depression is, I feel so overwhelmed all the time because things are so chaotic. I need to just kind of keep a lid on it. So I'm going to shrink and retract and just kind of stay in my little bubble. That makes perfect sense if you're living in that kind of an environment. So let's honor that there's really good reasons for that. And then figure out, are those threats still happening right now? And if not, maybe those old coping mechanisms have outlived their usefulness, and let's learn some new skills so that you can deal with life as it presents now and not necessarily the way it presented when you were, 7 or 11.
I think that's absolutely spot on. And one thing too, I've done an episode on kind of trauma therapy and the difference between big T and little t trauma. And so many people will look back at their childhood and say, well, I grew up in a really privileged way, or like a very calm household, a very loving household. I didn't have trauma. Why was I so anxious as a 4-year-old? And that resonates with me. Like, I grew up in a very loving family, a very calm, happy household. But I had all these health things that I didn't identify as trauma. And that is innately trauma. And beyond that, most people, their parents, and in our generation, their parents had us pretty young. They were just little kids trying to figure out how to live life themselves while raising little kids. There is innately going to be chaos in there that they shielded us from. But as you said, as little kids, we're smart. We're noticing things. We're really observing what's going on around us. You soak it in, even if they're trying to protect you from it, and they did a great job protecting you at it. We still notice and observe things that are going on around us. So regardless if you identify with having trauma or not having trauma as a kid, if your parents were like 20 years old and they had you, you probably absorbed some of their stresses that they were just trying to navigate on their own too, and that's nobody's fault, and that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, so one of the paradigm shifts that I love helping our patients make is sort of introducing this concept of being a victim of your biology. And what I mean with that is there's a lot of things that, our hormone levels, are the epigenetics, the way our nervous system, formed, is the result of repetitive experiences that we had early on, especially during those. I mean, think about it, like our nervous system, the prefrontal cortex isn't really fully baked until your mid-20s, right? So you have this 2-decade-long period of time where the organism is adapting and changing. How? Based on what? Well, based on repetitive experiences that you're having. Now, are you as a 5-year-old choosing that? Did you choose which family you were born into and what the culture was and which geographical location? And did you choose your sexual orientation? Like, all of these things are happening to you. And you're doing your best to adapt to them. But here you are now later on in life as a 30-something-year-old going, gosh, I wonder why I'm so twitchy and so reactive to this stuff. And at this point, like your whole endocrine system has been, is modulated in such a way that it reacts to certain things. And are you choosing that? Is that your fault? No, you're a victim of your biology in that situation. And so helping people also remove this like depersonalize their relationship to their mental health. It's like, it's not you that is depressed. It's like you're experiencing depression. There's part of you that's experiencing anxiety, but it doesn't define you, nor is it your fault. There's nothing wrong with you that you are having these experiences. That's huge, It's huge.
And it has a trickle down too. It's, you didn't do anything to cause your chronic illness, but that's happening to you, and you have to figure out the tools to get through it and to make yourself feel better. And I think that we're at a time in society where we're starting to realize that our words and our thoughts carry a lot of power in how they manifest in our bodies, how they make us think and feel. And so understanding that the fault or the personalization, the identity that's so deeply grounded in these labels might not actually be serving us that well is kind of an aha, shocking moment. And I think where we're going in this conversation is, if it's hard to get to that place on your own, psychedelic therapy and therapeutics can really help you start to take that step out and go, oh, I'm not this label. I'm not this identity. It's just part of my life and something that I have to deal with and figure out tools to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, it's, so being a parent, most parents could probably relate to this. It's like you gain these insights into your toddlers when they're acting out. Now, you could either look at that situation where they're acting out and say, oh my gosh, that's a really bad human being and there's a moral defect there and this little person is just awful, right? Or you can look at him and say, of course, he's sleep deprived and hangry. It's hot out. It's uncomfortable. Yeah. He or she doesn't have the skill set yet to be able to meet this challenge in a way that's just more equanimous and more compassionate or self-compassion, right? So our role as the parent is to look at that with some degree of sort of insight and intelligence and say, again, it's not a moral defect. This poor little being is suffering. It's so obvious to me. Let me get some food, some water, some rest, right? So most of us, when we stumble into this mental health thing, we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to activate the adult in us that can sit there and say, Oli, there's no moral defect here. You're not a bad person. You are reacting in a way that's totally predictable based on stuff that you experienced in the past. What you need now is, some skills around self-compassion, and some basic like self-care, like feed yourself, get some sleep, surround yourself with people that are supportive. But you need to sort of learn how to activate that within yourself. And unfortunately, a lot of our mental health system is designed around saying, oh, you're not responsible for that. In fact, you're the victim of all of this. Like you have this defect. So now you need medicine and you need all these drugs to fix you, right? And then we get into this role where it's like, oh gosh, it's like the little kid feeling like there's something inherently wrong with them. And the only way they can fix themselves is by taking in all this stuff from the outside. And it's part of our job as parents is to help kids recognize like, hey, you're just tired right now, so go rest. Yeah. You're hungry, go get something to eat, right? So same thing here. We need to build skills in people that they can understand that when I'm feeling depressed or anxious, like what is it that I need? How do I activate the adult so that I can meet that in a way that feels compassionate and intelligent? Yeah.
I think that you're saying it so well. And I'm actively in trauma therapy right now, and I keep having these kind of aha moments where I see my therapist and I'm like, oh, she knows exactly why I'm thinking this way, but she wants me to get there on my own and realize what it is, because that's the growth I need in order to get from where I am right now and letting this trauma just have its talons in me so tightly to stepping away from it and having that be an independent experience from me. And that can be really hard to do.
Well, it's the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing ever. I mean, sometimes I sort of half jokingly refer to the work that we do as I refer to us as we're a school for adulting.
Oh, I love that. I
don't mean that in like a derogatory sense. It's like, oh, grow up, be an adult. But it's really just saying, you need to. We all have some degree of arrested development based on our childhood experiences, and there's certain parts of us that never grew up, So we need to learn how to bring the adult online and say, okay, this is a tough situation and your anxiety, your depression, your OCD, all these things are being activated. So, what do you need? What do you need to be able to get better at? Like, how do you self-soothe? How do you take this on as an adult so that you can feel better? And it's brutal. It can be really, really humbling and really, at first it can feel really discouraging. We're just like, oh man, I have no idea what to do. I don't know how to handle this,
It's so overwhelming. But when you do it and you get through it and you get on the other side and you go, oh my God, I can live life, I can breathe again. There's so much more I can do now. I like to think of it as like when we're growing up, I grew up in a very small town in the Midwest. There was like one very Americanized Chinese food restaurant, and that was it. So I didn't really ever have Asian cuisine until I was in college. When I got to college, then I tried all these different foods and was like, oh my gosh, my palate has expanded. I love all these different things. And I wasn't at fault for having a small palate because I didn't experience it, but I just didn't have exposure to it. So when I grew up and got there and I tried these new things, I went, oh, aha. Now I have a new perception, new idea about life. And that's the same thing with mental health tools. You only have what you have, and that's not your fault. But when you broaden your exposure and you take those steps to go and learn new modalities, just like trying new foods or traveling and finding new experiences, you pick these new tools up and you go, whoa, I can grow in this new way that I had no idea. And now Chinese food's my favorite food in the entire world. And that's what I turn to. So kind of a silly analogy, but I think, at the grounds of it, it's not your fault that you don't have the tools to manage what you're dealing with and what's heavy for you.
Yeah.
But there are tools out there if you feel comfortable to get out of your little comfort zone and go try them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said earlier, I've been doing this for many years, and obviously you start seeing certain patterns, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm actually in the middle of writing a book based on this sort of process that we use at the clinics, and I refer to these skill sets that you're talking about, right? So you take a step back and say, okay, if part of the issue is, people haven't developed certain skills that they need in order to do this, well, what are those skills? So I refer to these as the 10 non-negotiables of well-being, right?
Okay.
Meaning that no matter how you got to where you are right now, it could be childhood trauma, it could be war, it could be,
chronic illness.
Like however you got here, these 10 non-negotiables are the skills that you need to be good enough at so that you can manage them consistently over time. So, the obvious ones are, something like sleep is a really obvious one, right? You need to be good enough at sleep so that you get good enough rest. Now, do you need to get, 8.5 hours every night consistently and so on? Probably not. Like, life is hectic, but for the most part, over a certain period of time, you need to be pretty good at it.
Consistent.
So you need to learn what it takes for you to get that rest. And it's different for everyone, right? So I'm not sitting there prescribing and saying this is the way, but I'm just saying, hey, how's your sleep?
Figure out your bio-individuality.
Now there's some non-obvious ones that I and this comes from doing lots of home visits and working with patients over time. So for example, life administration is one that I would refer to. And so here's an example. Patient, really anxious, really depressed, and you start doing this history and you start learning like, well, what's going on in your life? And they're drowning in credit card debt, have been for several years. They just can't get out from under it, right? So I sit there and I take a step back and I ask them the question, say, can you imagine, like, is there any amount of ketamine, SSRIs, talk therapy that's going to remove this pressure and this anxiety that you're going to feel if in 2-3 years from now you're still drowning in credit card debt? Like, what do you think? And they're, to them, like, the light bulb goes off and they're like, yeah, no, you're right. I'm still going to feel panicked and under a lot of pressure. So it's like, life admin, your ability to pay bills on time and come up with a strategy that says, here's how I'm going to, pay down this debt and actually stick to it and have the structure and accountability to do so. That now is squarely like in the middle of the bullseye of this person's mental health process.
Yep.
But who's talking to them about it? Like, their psychiatrist isn't, their therapist isn't. They're on
you
their
don't learn
own
about
out
it in
there,
school.
right? Getting pumped full of all kinds of medicines, doing therapies, this and that. But nobody's talking about the low-hanging fruit and the obvious thing, which is, dude, we got to get on top of your credit card debt. Because can you imagine waking up and that's gone?
Oh,
now
it's the best feeling in the world.
Right? Yeah. So you need to get good enough at life admin in order to be able to be well over the long run. That's why that's one of the non-negotiables. Another one
love that, Ollie.
is
That's
being
a
of
really,
service.
really good one.
Most patients that I've worked with that get on a path of feeling well in the long run do something in their life where they shift from me, my anxiety, I feel like shit, I feel terrible, to actually looking up and going, wow, how do I contribute to others' well-being? Could be my neighbors, it could be volunteering at the school, could be doing something, but being of service has become a central skill that I'm cultivating in my life. And if you can do that, and you again, you don't have to give up your life and go abroad and work in a third world country, but just doing something where you're not just focused on yourself, but your podcast is a great example of that. Like, making that part of your mission to go out there and help others, right? So,
and I even think it can be even smaller than that. Like when I first got sick, one of the biggest things I always turned to of like, man, I think that weirdly was a saving grace was I got a dog and I got plants and I was responsible for keeping other things alive and going.
100%.
And that was like, oh, yes, I don't feel good, but that doesn't matter. My dog can't feed itself. My plants will die if I don't water them. And those little tiny acts of other got me out of the me brain set that's so easy to slip into when you don't feel well and your like whole life is focused on your health.
Of course it hurts. You just stubbed your toe in that chair and everything's focused on the pain in your toe.
Yes.
So yeah, that's your whole world, right? So of course, if you're anxious, depressed, And, so I think one of the reasons I take a step back and I say, well, why is no one helping these, people that are struggling with these things? Why is no one helping them with these things? And the answer is because it requires an interest on the provider side into getting into their life and actually understanding the nuances of what's going on, right? Totally. So for you, a pet and plants may be the perfect incremental move to say, great, yeah, this is what's going to get me out of just spinning in my own world to focusing on something outside of myself. For someone else, let's say physical activity. For someone, it might be like, oh, I really got to get back into working out 5 days in the gym. Like that's at that level. For some other people, it's just getting outside, walking around the block for 10 minutes a day. Totally. It doesn't really matter, right? So good enough is a very subjective thing. And as a provider, you have to drop into their world and actually understand what like good enough or what possible. That incremental move would be for them specifically. That takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort and interest from the provider side. And the problem is there's no CPT codes for that. You don't get reimbursed by insurance for doing any of that work. Yeah, and the hardest thing is helping people actually do it. I'd say the vast majority of people, when I ask, one of the questions that we have on one of our intake forms is, give us examples of, like what are 3 things that you tell yourself you ought to be doing on the regular, but you have a hard time actually doing it. Obvious stuff comes up. It's
calling out so hard.
Right? It's like exercising, drinking water, eating healthy, staying away from, quit smoking, drink less. It's like, yeah, okay, so those are the obvious things. Like, what it takes, but so the question now shifts more to what's stopping you? What's in the way of getting that done? And that becomes our work then, is helping them with that, right? So
it's that execution piece. I always have it written. I have a bunch of sticky notes written down in my office of little mantras that I like to keep, and one of them is manifesting is only dreams unless you have execution. And that's the exact kind of thing of like, what's holding you back in life, figure out what it is, and then don't just let it sit there.
And then, you get into these things like, so like, why do this? Like, what do you want changed? And usually the answer is something like, I'm just so tired of my anxiety and my depression. I'm like, okay, if that wasn't the case, like, what do you want instead? And most people don't have an answer for that, right? Because they're so focused on running away from their anxiety and their depression that they don't actually have a clear picture of what they're trying to run towards. Yeah. And so that becomes our work, is to say, cool, like what do you want instead? What would your, average Monday evening or Thursday morning look like if you weren't spending all this energy and time on depression? What do you want to replace it with? And most people, like I said, that no one's having that conversation with them, so they don't know. But you're not going to be able to make any changes. I
love that.
Right? If you're just sitting there saying, oh, I got to just run away from my anxiety and depression, but you don't know, so now what? Like, what direction do you actually move towards? And you need to know that in order to make changes, right?
So. I think that even translates across to so many other areas of our lives. Like, if I think of how hard I find myself many times throughout the last 25 years falling off the horse, not doing my functional things, not doing my lifestyle things, managing my chronic illness. Yeah. And it's usually because I lose sight of my why. Like, why am I trying to get through the flare-up? And it's me then submitting to, this flare is terrible. I've been fighting it for so long. This is like, woe is me. But when I can get back into that mindset of flowing with the flare, because I want to get to that next place of, I want to travel with my husband. I want to be able to be a mom one day. I want to be able to blah. And I know if I do these things and I just keep an open mind, and I know it's not going to be linear, but keep flowing with this stuff, I'll get there. And that mindset changes everything in how you live your life with these heavy things that other people don't have to carry. Yeah, and we're also, I experience this all the time. I think there's just a part of our
human nature, which is, when you're in a lot of pain, you feel really motivated to make changes.
Totally.
And then you start making those changes and you start feeling a little bit better. It might be, meditating, exercising, journaling, doing whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And you start feeling better. And then we start getting lazy, right? Because it's like, I feel better. I don't feel that pressure to do all this stuff anymore. And
I don't need it anymore.
That the reason you feel better is because you're doing all that stuff. So the example I give there is like, you're going to the gym. You go every day to the gym and you're getting, healthy and strong and your cardio is great. And, 6 weeks later, you're sitting there going, I don't need to go to the gym anymore. Look at me, I'm fit. It's like, no, you're fit because you went to the gym all the time, right?
Yes.
So same thing with mental health. It's that structure and that, holding yourself accountable to doing the things consistently that result in this overall long-term well-being. So we need to address that aspect of human nature too, and hopefully do it with some humor and compassion and things like that. So it doesn't. There's no like guilting or shaming in there, but
no,
it is a thing that we all do.
It's the most
feeling
human
better,
thing.
You get lazy. Yeah,
mm-hmm. It's the most human thing to get relaxed and feel. I think it's almost feeling safe, and that you don't have to do things to feel a certain way. You're like, finally, that's the destination I thought I was going to. But turns out the destination is that it's not the things that you do, but it's that feeling, and you do have to do those things to keep that feeling.
Yeah.
What else is part of your intake for these patients? And then I'd love to dive into like what, for all the audience, it's probably like, okay, so this all sounds great and all, but what the hell is ketamine?
What is it? How do we do it? Yeah, cool. Yeah. So our intake is very. Look, we're a licensed medical clinic, right? So when someone comes in for a procedure, which ketamine is it's a pharmaceutical, and so we're a very structured. We have very structured clinical intake. But then there's also these other things, like we've developed our own well-being assessment that basically tries to quantify these 10 skill sets. So we want a snapshot of this past week. How much time did you spend outdoors? How much time did you spend worrying about your financial situation? How much time did you spend with, friends and family, sharing a meal or doing things like that? We want a snapshot of that kind of stuff. And then we merge the clinical with that and come up with a roadmap. And usually, the whole process starts with just a single treatment. So we're just very upfront with people. There's lots of clinics out there that will, again, this is the business of healthcare and it gets kind of icky, So there's a lot of like, okay, great. Hey, if you sign on the dotted line right now, you're going to need 6 treatments, but if you sign up now, we'll give you a 7th one at a certain, that's the gross
that's the side of
things. Yeah. So we start with just saying, look, you have no idea what you're getting into. We know that from experience. So we're going to have you come in and do one treatment. It's a guided treatment, meaning there's someone that is dedicated 100% to you while you're in clinic. They will be in the room with you while you're having your experience. They'll sit quietly, they'll interact with you. But the idea is we're going to sort of chaperone you and curate this experience for you because we want you to feel safe and we want you to walk out the other end with a much deeper understanding of what this is and what it could look like.
I love that.
Two days after that first treatment, then we'll sit down and say, okay, how you doing? Like, what do you think? In my years of doing this, I'd say nobody walks out of this, we call it the evaluation treatment. Mm-hmm. Nobody walks out of that first treatment feeling ambivalent about the session. So about 4 to 5% walk out saying, this was terrible. I don't want to ever do this.
Too much for me.
This is too weird and too not my cup of tea, right? But on the flip side, like 95% walk out saying, whoa, I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's a there. I know it instinctively. Yeah, I'd like to come back. So we give them a couple of days to just kind of sit with it. Then we do an integration session, and that really revolves around what did you notice? Why do you think that this might be helpful? Do you understand this holistic view of, the ketamine itself is maybe 50% of the treatment. The other 50% is helping you articulate where you want to go and actually starting to engage in that sort of life skills coaching process. And so the overwhelming majority come back after their first treatment. And then we customize it, we personalize it. So the other thing that makes us different is we don't get hung up on, here's the protocol for everyone. Here's the dose that everyone needs to get. It's more like, well, we saw you in that first treatment. Here's how you responded to this dose. So next treatment, when you come in for this, we'll increase the dose slightly. We'll do it for an hour, and then we really personalize the experience for everyone. And yeah, I think that's what's required to just everyone's different, so they need a slightly different approach to it.
I think so too. When you talk about kind of like dosing and whatnot, can you explain to everybody, like, what does the target or ideal kind of feeling that we're trying to achieve during a session look like or feel like, and how does that differ by person? Like, what if someone has extreme anxiety? Do they have a different dosing than someone that has really bad chronic pain and has been on pain medication for a long time, so they're kind of used to that feeling of euphoria or what's the word I'm looking for? Out of bodiness.
Yep. Transpersonal is what the...
Thank you.
That's the word. The technical term is dissociation, but usually dissociation in the psychiatric context is kind of a negative. So we refer to it as transpersonal. It's like you're outside of your usual. So to understand our approach to ketamine, there are basically two levers that we're pulling. The first one, so when we give someone ketamine, they have this dissociative, it's a dissociative anesthetic. So you have this feeling of being outside of your body. Sometimes it's fun for people to sort of touch their body and go like, whoa, whose body is that? It's like, yeah, isn't that wild? So, so we give a minimal dose. We call it sort of a therapeutically effective dose. And the idea is to stimulate a subjective experience where people just feel this altered state of consciousness. Now, there's a huge range within that. You can feel mildly altered, or you can feel like you're almost on the verge of being out in an anesthetic, right? We're always in the sub-anesthetic realm. So we always, in the beginning, just, we try to give you the least amount of ketamine necessary in order to get that, desired result. But we want you to feel altered. We want you to feel this. The way I describe it is there's a sense of spaciousness that enters the picture when you have ketamine, meaning there's you, the experiencer, and then there's a lot of space, and then you notice like, oh, there are my emotions, there are my memories and thoughts, but there's this spaciousness between you and that. The bigger that space, the more profound I think people's understanding is that, oh, I am not my anxiety, I am not my depression. This is an experience that I have. So one of my favorite questions there is when someone's, let's say 10, 15 minutes in, I'll ask them, say, hey, where's your anxiety right now? There's usually a long pause, and they'll say something like, it's interesting. I know what it feels like, but I actually can't tap into it right now. Meanwhile, 16 minutes earlier, they were in the waiting room going, I feel really anxious. I'm feeling really scared. I can feel it in my body, right? All that stuff.
Yes.
And now they're sitting there going, like, wow, interesting. This is, I know
it's not gone
cognitively that it's a thing, but I can't actually relate to it. I can't tap into it. To which I then say, awesome, like really integrate this, like really notice this is your organism in the absence of anxiety. It's possible, like that you have it within you. It's being lubricated and facilitated by the ketamine, but the main takeaway is you know what it feels like to be out of this state of chronic anxiety. I was like, wow, that's profound, right?
It's powerful.
Right. So lever one is curate this kind of subjective experience that helps people have this in clinic where they feel safe, they can surrender, and they're just like letting it happen. The second lever we're pulling is just the neurochemistry of how ketamine works. So fast tracking just the descriptions, like ketamine is it stimulates a sort of an overabundance of a neurotransmitter called glutamate. And glutamate is a driver of a process called synaptogenesis. So think of it this way. Every of the 90 to 100 billion neurons we have in our neocortex, every experience that we have is because a collection of those neurons are communicating with each other through these synaptic connections, right? A single neuron can have literally thousands, tens of thousands of connections. So there's trillions of these synaptic connections in our brain. And when you stub your toe and experience pain, there's a certain network that gets activated. When you feel sad because you're remembering when your dog died, like something else happens, right? Mm-hmm. So everything in our subjective experience is due to certain networks of neurons communicating through these synaptic connections. So when we introduce ketamine, we're actually stimulating the brain's capacity to grow new synaptic connections. So the $1 million question then is, well, what kind of connections do we want to grow? Yeah. And presumably, we don't want to grow more anxious or depressive connections. We want to stimulate gratitude and love and equanimity. And so the question is...
serenity.
Right. So when I stimulate those subjective states, what are the networks in my brain that are being activated? And if I activate them repeatedly after a ketamine treatment, the brain has everything that it needs to form and establish those new connections. So a lot of people don't understand that about ketamine because it's unique in the class of psychedelics. Like psilocybin doesn't do this, ayahuasca doesn't do this. They work mainly on serotonin and dopamine, but ketamine really stimulates this glutamate activity. And so if you combine the ketamine treatments with really intentional, targeted behavior changes, we call this self-directed positive neuroplasticity. It's self-directed because you're choosing what you want. It's positive because presumably you want these positive states. And the plasticity part is the more you do it, the more the brain's structure and function orients itself towards these positive states. So if you do a series of ketamine treatments and each one of them is followed by some really specific intentional positivity training, you are literally changing the structure and function of your brain over the time span of like days and weeks to orient towards something that's more positive. And the cool thing is you get to choose what that is. Right?
It's so cool.
Right. So even if we talk about like, gratitude, we all want more gratitude in our life. Yeah. But your definition and the things that activate gratitude for you are going to be different than for me. Right. So so the main thing is to make sure that we're stimulating that and paying attention to what makes sense to you and activating that repeatedly. And if we do that over time, then magical things happen. It's really amazing how quickly that changes.
It really is. And it's interesting to know when you go into it, because I went into ketamine therapy blind. I had no idea what it did. I was just so desperate to not be at this level of pain I was experiencing with CRPS, which is a terrible pain condition. Yeah. I was so desperate. And the very first time I had a ketamine therapy, I remember walking out being like, well, this just changed my life, but I need to understand why now. And I had to do it in reverse order almost to understand why. So I'm so glad that we're talking through this. So anybody listening that's curious about it, you know what change is possible and what you can facilitate in your own life with the help of, obviously guides with this, I think is really, really critical. I wish that I had that during mine. I think that kind of changes everything for the experience.
Yeah, and it's somewhat frustrating still. I'll give you an example. So we work a lot with veterans. We have a contract with the VA, so veterans in Northern California get our treatments at no cost. So we'll have these veterans coming to us, and many of them have had ketamine before, right? So we ask them, so what was that like? And they're like, well, I was at the VA. I was in a hospital room in a hospital gurney. The fluorescent lights were on. People were coming and going. Yeah, or even worse, like in a group, like there's other patients in the room.
That sounds terrible.
And doctors are coming and going, and there's lots of noises, and then that was my ketamine. Then you introduce ketamine, you're having this crazy experience. So that is not conducive to surrender and a sense of safety and relaxation, right? So there's clearly a profound misunderstanding there of the people that are administering that. Yeah. In most cases, I find that they've had no firsthand personal experience with ketamine themselves. Because if they did, they would know not to do it. Right.
Yeah, I agree. Right. I agree.
Like, we know not to do that because everyone at our clinic knows firsthand what it's like to do it, right? So you walk into the room and you're looking around going like, ooh, we need to tweak this, or the lighting, or the music's too loud, or, we need to make sure that we need to get new recliners because these ones are wearing out. It's not comfortable, because the whole thing is oriented towards curating an experience. That first lever we're pulling is curating an experience that makes it conducive for the patient to truly be able to relax, like really drop in and surrender and just trust that whatever happens here, I'm good. I trust these people. I'm safe. If you can't do that, then there's always this barrier. You're sort of white knuckling through it.
Sense of distrust almost. Mm-hmm. That old adage of I think it must have come. It was probably born in like the 60s. Setting, and safety. Is that the third one? I can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to have those three things in order to facilitate a hopefully better experience, and that's for like recreational drug usage, but I think it holds true for ketamine as a therapeutic as well.
Oh, 100%,
your mindset, how you're getting it administered, who's with you, feeling that sense of safety that you can kind of unfold, because you feel like your brain's cracking open.
And and someone's coming in for the first time. They're taking this leap of faith. They're kind of anxious and they're scared. So set refers to mindset, right? So bringing them in, making them feel comfortable in the room, doing some breathing exercises with them, reassuring them that we've got this under control, helping explain to them what's going to happen. Like there's lots of ketamine clinics that just don't do that. Again, why? Because it costs money. It takes time. It takes effort to do that, and a certain degree of know-how. And so a lot of people just skip that. But if you don't do it, you kind of pay the price on the back end because you're just not getting, you're just not getting the benefit.
I agree, and even more so than that, I think it splits the odds of if it's going to be helpful or not. I think if you walk away from a ketamine therapy session and you're the person that had my experience, where it wasn't this kind of pre-considered, very individualized experience and you're just thrown into it, I feel lucky that I walked away and had the experience that I did. I think the odds of somebody going through that and walking away being like, I never want to try that again, is probably really high. Similar to the VA hospital that you were describing.
Yeah. So now check this out. So there's this interesting, evolution of this whole thing. So for the most part, we've been doing intravenous ketamine. Why? Because with IV, we can really control the dose. Again, every patient is on a different dose, a different speed with which we're administering that dose, right? So we can really meet the patient where they're at. And the downside is it's expensive and it's not covered by insurance.
No.
So now enter, there's a new form of ketamine called Spravato. And we've started offering Spravato. It's an intranasal spray manufactured by Johnson & Johnson. And the reason that's relevant is because it's FDA approved, which means insurance covers it. So we're now credentialed with Medicare and some of the bigger carriers so that patients can get this intranasal form of ketamine. Now, the protocols for Spravato are pretty cut and dry, very clinical, right? It's 8 treatments twice a week for 4 weeks. There's no follow-up. There's no sort of any of that patient interaction. It's just a 2-hour monitoring, when the patient is in clinic and sort of sending them home, having them return. We're overlaying onto, we offer Spravato now, but we still do integration calls. We still do all of that stuff. Now, insurance doesn't compensate us for that, right? So again, this is us just taking the high road and just saying, well, why are we doing this? Because we want to help people heal. So if we just give them Spravato, this intranasal ketamine, without all the stuff we just talked about, right? The follow-up and making sure that we're helping them understand, like, here's what you learned or got out of this last session. Here's how you integrate this into your life, on a daily basis moving forward. If you don't do that, you're missing, in my opinion, the whole point. Again, we're shifting from just doing ketamine or just doing Spravato to helping humans heal.
Yep.
But there it is. It's like, so again, it's on us as providers to sit there and hit the pause button and say, well, okay, it's great. We're getting ketamine into people's bodies intranasally and you're doing insurance and playing that whole game. But what's the end goal here? Well, the end goal is to help them learn new skills so that they can live their life more sustainably and be well. Well, who's doing that? Well, according to the Spravato protocols, nobody. It's just magically going to happen somehow. So,
That's
so again,
wild to me.
So very, very, very typical. It's this like healthcare mentality of there's something that's broken, it'll fix it. And I get it. Like when it comes to surgery, we have the best healthcare in the world, right? You break a bone. I want that ortho guy to like fix me, right?
Yes.
Mental health it's just different,
Our
and
paradigm
we need
has
to make
shifted in it.
space for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
I actually think pain fits in that same bucket of that there's something wrong with you.
oh
But
yeah,
in reality, chronic pain is it's that neuroplasticity. Your brain has learned to be in
yeah,
this constant state of firing, hey, you stubbed your toe, you stubbed your toe, you stubbed your toe, when in reality you didn't stub your toe. But your
yeah,
brain has just now molded into that
yeah,
experience because it's been happening over and over and over again. So to get out of it, I think that's why ketamine therapy can be so powerful for chronic pain, because it helps you step out of that learned neuropathway firing.
yeah. I mean, we've treated some patients with CRPS, and yeah, so it made the difference between like getting a text message or a phone call saying, "Oh my gosh, I was at the top of my stairs with 2 grocery bags in my hand, and I didn't even realize I was able to walk up the stairs doing that."
Yeah.
That kind of thing. The challenge with certainly with just in all humility, ketamine and the long term impact or efficacy on chronic pain is it's still. Yeah, it's a little bit of the Wild West. It's not very well understood or studied. Yeah.
I agree. It's
So,
not a silver bullet, and I will be so transparent with the audience too. Like, I have had to
yeah.
do ketamine therapy several times over the last 6 years. One, session did not cut it.
Yeah.
Did it give me reprieve for 12 months, 18 months, 24 months at times? Yes. And that to me was worth it. But after exploring more and learning more, I'm now super curious about chasing that, but in a more therapeutic setting like you guys offer at CIT,
Yeah.
and seeing, does that extend the longevity of the peace I get, the break from the CRPS pain? And I still know back of head, if I have an acute flare-up and I'm suffering terribly, I can go to the emergency room, I can get ketamine there, I can go to my pain management clinic, I can get a dose of ketamine there, and it will help, but it's a Band-Aid. I
Yeah.
think the real healing, the real neurogenesis reprocessing happens through these more formulated experiences.
Yeah. 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 And there's, we're getting smarter and more creative. So for example, we're starting to combine various treatments. So we also offer what are called stellate ganglion blocks, SGB
Ooh,
for short.
yeah, I've read about
Yeah.
these and I'm so intrigued.
Yeah,
Give everybody the rundown.
Okay. So well, they've been used for pain, for chronic pain, but now most recently also finding a lot of traction in mental health, and here
Yeah.
especially with PTSD. So the idea behind it is the following. So trauma lives in the body, right? Most of us. One of the reasons typical talk therapy I don't think works really well for trauma is because you're not trying to address something. The problem's not up here. It's here, right? So usually what happens is you're in a situation. The body picks up some kind of cues, and it sends a bottom-up message to the brain that says danger. The brain now runs with it,
Learns it.
and figures out all kinds of stories and, oh, here's this, that, and the other thing, right? But the main thing to understand is, like, trauma lives in the body, and it's a bottom-up signal that activates the brain into this state of hyperarousal.
Yeah.
So one of the pathways is there's this nerve bundle called the stellate ganglion, and they run down both sides of the neck.
It's parallel to the vagus nerve, right? Or is it part of the vagus nerve?
Yep. It's connected to the vagal, that whole bundle.
Okay.
And so what we do is we patient comes in and we do 2 injections of, I'm oversimplifying this, but let's say you're putting in some lidocaine, you're numbing this nerve bundle out at C4 and at C6, totally painless, takes less than a half hour. And we know it's successful when patients no longer have, for example, your pupils don't respond to light anymore. You have a slightly hard time swallowing, and it's because we've interrupted some of these sort of basic functions. It's like we're putting a block in there, right?
Yeah.
And that means that for a period of time, this bottom-up signal can't get to the brain, right? So
that's fascinating.
It wears off after a while, but there's something about even just the short period of time that the blocks take place. So you usually do it on one day, you'll do one side. Second day you'll do the other side. We don't want to do both at the same time because of these, because of the
still to swallow and
physio, right? Yeah, you want to be able to clear your throat and stuff like that. So, I've had it done just because I'm always curious about this stuff, and super interesting. I mean, there's this palpable down regulation in in one's nervous system, especially if you do it on both sides. If you then, now we're starting to combine those with ketamine treatment. So you do the block and then you do a lower dose ketamine session for an hour afterwards. And again, the idea is now that we've got this opening and this down regulation in the nervous system, now allow the mind to sort of open up to, oh man, this is what it's like. This is me as well. This kind of down regulated, equanimous, chill being, like, and with some good, guidance, you can just reinforce the awareness and the knowledge that this is inside of me. We're stimulating a process that I have sort of the innate ability to experience. And if I'm aware that I'm having it, then I can really register, like, I remember what it's like to feel really chill and really open. And once you have that, then you can start orienting the rest of your life around, like, trying to remember that experience, right? So that's the, so we're dabbling and we're trying to research all of this. We have a research program going with UC Davis now where we're trying to really understand how these post-treatment interventions, how do they actually affect the efficacy over the long run, right? The holy grail here is, I want you off ketamine. I want you feeling better. I don't want you ever coming back to the clinic needing more ketamine sessions. That to me would be success. So.
And I think that right there is the differentiator for anybody who's like, I want to do this. Find the clinic that doesn't want you to be the repeat customer.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's the clinic that wants to take care of you and help you heal and grow instead of making you switch out, like we said at the beginning, switch out your SSRIs for ketamine therapy. So my last question to kind of wrap is, for anybody listening, how would they know if they're ready, if they're a good candidate for this and they want to explore but don't know how, don't know if they are kind of in the right time or spot in their life? How much time do they need to set aside to do this? What do you usually coach people on that are questioning, at least, or curious, I should say?
Yeah, I would say, as I mentioned earlier, it's like, first and foremost, don't sign up for a series of anything. Like, go in, find someone who's willing to do one treatment and who will really hold your hand and chaperone you through it, answer all your questions, and just really give you a good experience. And you'll know what that feels like. If there's any part of you that's like, God, that felt weird, or those people,
sterile,
then pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I think happens a lot is, people knock on our door as kind of the last resort. So psychedelics and ketamine and for some people is still this, I've tried everything else. This seems like the Hail Mary. Let me go for this. I'd say invert that. Try this first because we know very quickly whether or not it's going to work. So the onset and the symptom relief, all of that stuff, we will know very, very quickly within days whether or not this is for you. And then you can either check it off your list as something that you've tried and you're moving on, or you can embark on a whole new modality of therapy. In contrast to, let's say, SSRIs or the other pharmaceuticals, which take weeks and months of titration and you're having this side effect, let's give you another medicine. Before you know it, you're on this cocktail of different things, and you're 7 months in going, man, I still don't feel better, So I'd say try this sooner rather than later. But like you said, find a provider that I think meets those criteria. And if any, even if they're not in the area where we live, if anyone wants to call and just ask this question. So if you're in Texas and you're looking for a provider in Texas, and you're never going to come to CIT clinics, just give us a call anyway. Like, this is what we do. We're trying to just lift the whole industry up. Happy to walk you through it.
Thanks, Oli. I think for anybody listening, I want to echo that. Like, I'm so grateful that my pain management doctor had me try ketamine when he had me try ketamine. It was a year after I'd been diagnosed with PAN, the degenerative form of vasculitis that I have. And honestly, I chalk up part of having a positive outlook on my life and seeing the world differently and living with this because I did ketamine therapy. It shifted my whole internalized perception of being sick and what it looks like and what it means and what I should or should not be doing. And it made me feel so free and at peace, even though I still was dealing with traumas or anxieties or depressions that came with being chronically sick, or pain itself. I just felt this different sense of identity and self going with it.
Yeah. boy, if I
And
could
I hope
bottle
other people
that,
can have
that's,
that.
yeah, it's, that was my story, saved my life, and again, it just sounds like we can say those words, but until you actually sort of touch into it, and the number of humans that I come into contact with that have those experiences and at some point are literally in tears saying, you guys have changed everything. Yeah. It's a very typical experience that we have. But I think part of it is also because we take this holistic, approach, and just remembering not everyone does that. I mean, you can get ketamine lozenges online. There's so many ways of doing this. Mm-hmm. And again, just the warning is don't confuse the drug with sort of the transformation, the end goal, right? Yeah.
Totally agree.
So just because you can get ketamine for cheaper online, or those guys will throw in a 7th session, for half off, doesn't mean that that's the smart thing to do. So educate yourself.
Yeah, I think that sometimes the easy route, we have to remember, is not always the right route.
Yeah. And I like to think, so some of the, on our website, for example, also there's a whole section on integration groups. So like I do this daily sessions called 15 Minutes of Positivity. Yeah. So, and the idea is, again, it's very simple. It's basically just saying, look, you want to get better at mindfulness, gratitude, attention training, forgiveness, like all these things that most people I talk with are like, yeah, that's the good stuff. I want to get better at that. So, my answer is, well, when do you do it? How frequently are you flexing those muscles? And so the answer is we have integration groups that people can join. You don't have to be a patient at CIT clinics. You can come to my daily session. It's literally just 15 minutes, Monday through Friday at noon Pacific time. And yeah, you just follow along, and you just, I have some people now that have former patients that have been doing this for almost 2 years.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's pretty much every day. Yeah,
that's an echo of, I think, the environment that you've cultivated at CIT, and also, I mean, Oli, just like in our interactions, you're someone that when someone interacts with you, they walk away being like, that felt like a really good conversation. I want to interact with that more. I want to find what's the science behind that. So I can understand why people want to join and stick with you.
Yeah. So yeah, and all that stuff is, so another scenario would be you're doing ketamine at a clinic that doesn't offer this stuff. It doesn't mean you can't do the integration groups with us. So you'll meet other patients. It's a group integration, and you can show up to say, I'm in Texas. I'm doing ketamine, but they don't have groups like this. And just like, again, if you want to make a donation, you can, but we don't turn anyone away for lack of funds. So.
I love that. That's making it so accessible, which is beautiful and noble. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So.
Well, Oli, this has been like the best conversation ever. I could talk to you honestly for hours, and I feel like I'll have to come out to San Francisco to spend some time with you and your amazing wife. I'm moving in. Hello.
Come on down. Yeah.
All my favorite people are over there. But I would love to just wrap. One of my favorite things to do with this show is, because the chronic illness community, we have to give ourselves rest days. I have coined them as our duvet days, where you get to romanticize your rest and just give yourself over to recovery. I like to spend my time watching a funny movie or TV show, so I like to always ask my guests, what's your reco? What are you watching right now? What's your one brain cell TV show?
Yes. Okay, so I've been on this kick. Not quite a TV show. I watch a lot of my TV on YouTube. And so there's an astrophysicist named Brian Cox, C-O-X.
Okay.
And he has these, he's like a British Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Oh, I love it already.
And so he literally has these like 1 hour, 2 hour sessions where he'll talk about, black holes, or, is it possible that there's, life in other parts of the universe, or what's the deal with, space and time? Anyway, gets into the stuff that's usually way over my head, but he has this just awesome voice and this English accent and this ability to he'll just walk you through this pretty mind-blowing stuff in this really casual thing. And the sessions are literally called Fall Asleep, with Brian Cox. So clearly, like, he's tapped into something. Like, that's what I was doing. I was listening to this stuff and I would just kind of doze off. And so he started this whole series, like, where he realizes that a lot of people like listening to this as they drift off. And anyway, I recommend it. It's the kind of thing for me that just puts a lot of my stuff into perspective. When you're listening to things about, galaxies that
life.
are, billions of light years away and this, that, and the other thing. And you're just like, wow, it's just so awesome and humbling. And
yeah,
my pulled hamstring doesn't feel that big of a deal right now. Cause there's galaxies billions of light years away doing all kinds of neat stuff. So anyway,
it's the small
Brian
dot
Cox.
theory.
Yeah.
I love that. That's the other sticky note I have. It's the sticky note with a teeny tiny pencil dot, and you go, that's you, and everything else is so much bigger.
It. Yep. Yeah.
I'll trade you one for if you like Brian Cox.
Yeah. Tell me. Yeah.
Kyrgyzstan, also on YouTube. It's animated shorts, but they get into all of these kind of very cerebral topics, like what is a black hole? What does it do? What are the different possibilities of life that are out there? What are the different theories? Let's break it down. What is quantum physics, and how does that apply to manifesting? It's very palatable, very interesting. The guy that voices it, also British, ironically. Wonderful to watch if you
last
enjoy
name is
videos
Scott?
like that. It's called the Kyrgyzstan videos, and it's spelled in a very Nordic way, so I'm not even going to try to do that. I will try to find it, and I will just put the link in the description, and I will text you the link.
Cool. I'll text you some of this stuff too. Yeah. So it's
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, hopefully, uplifting and mind blowing all at the same time. So
that's a good place to end on. I like that, uplifting and mind bending. Well, thank you, Oli. This has been fabulous. And for anybody that wants to learn more information about CIT, Oli's work, his 15 minutes of positivity, all of that will be in the link in the description below. And I'm so excited for all of us to kind of go on this journey together. So thank you, Oli.
Awesome. Thank you for doing what you do. It's awesome contribution, helping a lot of people. So thanks. Yeah.
All right, guys. See you next week. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me for another week of Calling in Sick. As a reminder, I would love for y'all to like, follow, subscribe, save, share with your friend, do all of the things. It truly helps grow this community, and it helps these episodes reach the people that need them the most, whether that's for an educational piece, to have a little laugh, or to not feel so alone. As a reminder, Calling in Sick sits on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, and anywhere else where you can find your listens. From the bottom of my heart, I absolutely love you guys. Thank you so much for calling in sick with me every Monday. It's been an honor and a pleasure so far, and I can't wait to continue building this community with y'all. Love you.